InStitches show. Happy February! It's time for the second installment of our 2021 Mighty Mile-a-Minute calendar blanket. And this month, we're going to use the V-stitch. If you thought the split shell stitch from last month was fast, wait till you try this one. And in the interest of keeping things going, we're even going to start joining our strips together using a really simple join-as-you-go method. You do not have to join as you go if you've got other plans for your strips. Maybe you're not sure about the colors, maybe you're not sure if you want to add maybe some extra border to your strips, whatever the case may be. You can always individually make your strips, put them aside, and join them together later when you're ready. You can sew them together, stitch them together, whatever you want. But I'm interested in speed this year, so join as you go is the method I'm going to go with. We also know this blanket has generated a lot of questions, so if you have questions, we've got answers. We have put together a frequently asked questions section over on the calendar blanket page of our website, and you'll find the link to that in the description box down below. You can also check out the live stream we recently did where we talked all about the blanket and answered some very frequently asked questions. And if you missed the January strip, we'll have that in the description box as well. All your questions answered. So make sure you've got the same size hook and the same kind of yarn you did last month. Grab your hooks, grab your yarn, let's head on over to the craft table and we'll stitch it up together.
Easily find all of our crochet tutorials. Type youtube.com/JaydaInStitches into your web browser and we'll see you there.
In order to make our V-stitch mile-a-minute strip, you want 2 different colors. One for your border, one for your main stitch, and you want 80 yards of each. So 80 yards for your main stitch color, 80 yards for the strip's border. You want a pair of scissors, a yarn needle, and we're using the same hook as last time. That's a 5.5 millimeter, also known as an I or a 9 in the US, a 5 in the UK. And once you've got all that together, we can get started. Starting with my stitch color, we're going to create a slip knot, and we're going to chain 10 to begin. Once you have 10 chains, we're going to count back to the 5th chain. So the 5th chain from the hook, here it is here. We're going to create a V-stitch into it. V-stitch is a double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, all worked into the same stitch. So V-stitch, double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. You're going to skip 2 chains, find the next one, and work a V-stitch into it. Double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. Skip 1 chain, and into the last chain you're going to double crochet. So every row consists of 2 posts and 2 V-stitches. A post is either a double crochet on the very edge or 3 chains on the very edge, so your turning chains. And then of course in the middle you've got your 2 V-stitches. We chain 3, turn our work, and we begin the next row. Into the chain 1 space of the V-stitch from the row previous, you're going to work a V-stitch. Double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. Find the next V-stitch. Do not confuse it with the sort of little triangle shape between V-stitches. You want to find the middle of the V-stitch. Double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. So V-stitch into the center of each V-stitch. And of course there's only 2 per row. Finish the row by finding the top of the turning chains. Sometimes it helps to spin them around. And double crochet right into the top of them. That's 2 rows knocked out already. This is mile-a-minute, baby. We're going to chain 3, turn our work. That chain 3 counts as a double crochet or the first post. Find the first V-stitch, work a V-stitch into the center of it, double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. Find the next V-stitch over here, skip that middle space, double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. That's your V-stitch. And then find the top of the turning chains. Like I say, sometimes it helps to roll them towards you so you can see the top of them there. And double crochet into the top chain. That's 3 rows of the V-stitch. So there's 2 V-stitches per row and there's a post on either side. 3 rows down. You're going to do 78 rows in total. If you have changed the number of rows you put into your first strip, so the January strip, if you did more rows, whatever your total row count was before adding your border, that's how many rows you want to work of the V-stitch. So there's no special finishing row for this stitch. You're just working V-stitch rows all the way up. So go ahead, work away at the V-stitch, and I will see you at the end of row 78. I've completed 78 rows of the V-stitch. So once again, there's a post on either end, which is either a double crochet or 3 chains, which counts as a double crochet, and 2 V-stitches worked across the middle, and each V-stitch is worked into the middle of the V-stitch from the row before. You can count just by finding the holes in a V-stitch, just sort of track 1 row of V-stitches all the way up. And like I did last time, I put a little clip on the edge of every 10th row, just to make it easier to count, because this does go rather quickly. So once you've got 78 rows, or the correct row count that you want to match the strip from last month. The last month's strip was 78 rows in total before border. That's what we're doing for this one, 78 rows in total before border. If you increased your row count though in January strip, make sure that you do this exact same total number of stitch rows in this strip so that it measures the same when you go to put them together. We can fasten off. And take a moment to weave your tail in. Just sort of like bring it down through some of the little loops along the stitches at the side of that last double crochet. And weave it in back and forth across the bottom of that last row of stitches until it doesn't want to come out. We're going to add our border now to our V-stitch strip. So you want your border color, your hook, and because we're doing the join as you go method, you want the January strip as well. We're going to take our border color. We're going to start with a slip knot, and we're going to join our yarn in row 78 of our strip. So this is the last row of our strip, right here in this space between the turning chains and that first V-stitch. So we're only paying attention to spaces as we work our border. Chain 3 to begin. This counts as a double crochet, and because we're using the shell stitch, we want to complete our work in this space with 2 more double crochet stitches. 3 double crochet stitches equals 1 shell. So you're just concentrating on spaces and working 3 double crochet into the spaces that we want to work in. The next space is going to be between our 2 V-stitches. So you find that space between the V-stitches. I'm going to weave my little tail in later. Work 3 double crochet into that space between the V-stitches, and to finish the last shell across the top of our strip, find the space between the V-stitch and the post. There's a double crochet post. Work 3 double crochet into that space. We're going to head ourselves into a corner here. But before we complete a regular corner, this is where we start the join as you go method. So now you want to grab your other strip. In order to join as you go along our strips, you want to make sure the strip you're joining to is in the same direction as the strip you're working on. So this is row 78 of the January strip. This is the top of the strip, and we're going to be joining along this strip's right side. We're joining along the left side of the current strip we're working. So it's left side of the current strip to the right side of the previous strip. So we're going to join down here. We're going to chain 1. We're heading into a corner. Corner spaces are 2 chains usually, so we're going to chain the first half of the corner space. Pick up the previous strip. You're going to slip your hook through the space. So find that corner space, slip your hook in from back to front so that you can keep your yarn easy to access. You're just going to slip stitch, nothing fancy. Chain 1, that now completes the corner space, and now you're going to complete the corner, so we're still working into this space, with 3 more double crochet. So remember, a corner space is treated with 3 double crochet, chain 2, 3 double crochet usually. When you're joining as you go, you want to slip stitch to join in the space directly opposite to the strip you're joining to. So it sounds a bit funny, but it'll make a lot more sense as we go. So we've finished those 3. If we were to lay, I'm going to pull this up in here. If you were to lay your strips completely flat, those 3 double crochet now sit opposite these 3 double crochet. There's a space in between each shells, or each set of shells, and it's the spaces that you want to look for. So before you work 3 double crochet into the next space, because we're going to be working 3 double crochet shells into the large spaces all the way down the strip, just like the previous strip. So 1 shell per row edge. Before you start a new shell, you want to reach across to the space on the strip opposite and slip your hook through it. So it looks like this. Put my hook back in here. So if you're confused, lay it down, see where you joined, jump ahead to the next space. Here it is between shells. I'm just going to slip my hook in back to front and slip stitch. Then I reach back over here, I find the next big space along the side of my strip, and I work 3 double crochet into it. Now it helps to work on your lap or your flat surface, just because this can get a little heavy after a while when you're joining as you go. You're working across the side of an entire blanket, so the weight of that blanket is going to pull it down a little bit. So do work on something flat, like your lap or your work surface. Okay, that's 3 double crochet. If I lay it flat up against the previous block, there was my last join. I jump ahead to the next space between shells. Here it is here. So I'm just going to slip my hook from back to front, grab my yarn, and slip stitch. Nothing fancy. Remember, we're not putting chain spaces in between our shells. We only put chains in the corner, so you don't have to worry about chains in between shells. All right, I've joined. Now I look for the next row edge. Here's the space right here. See, there's some V-stitches, there's the space. So I'm going to work 3 double crochet into that space. Nice and simple. So that's 3 double crochet done. So that's that shell finished. Before I jump to the next one, so in between shells, pause. There was my last join. I jump ahead to the next space between shells. I slip my hook through there. Slip stitch, absolutely nothing fancy here. We're just slip stitching. And now I can move on to the next big space. So I look at the side of my thing. Here's my big space. 3 double crochet into the next space. And that's all you're going to do all the way down. This is a very simple join as you go method. So you're slip stitching in between the spaces of the shells, or I should say you're slip stitching into the spaces in between shells from the previous strip. So there's the join. I jump to the next one. I like to keep my yarn kind of up and out of the way. I slip my hook from back to front and just slip stitch real simple. Then I go back and I want to work my next shell. The next shell is worked into the big space here. I'm working around the posts along the side of each of those rows. 3 double crochet, and then I'll look for the next space between stitches, or between shells on the previous strip. So there's my 3 double crochet. Come back to the other strip. There's my previous join. Here's the next space. Keep my yarn up and out of the way here. And slip stitch. And that's all you do. Then you find your next space. Here it is. 3 more double crochet. You're going to do that all the way down the edge, and we'll have successfully joined our February strip to our January one. All right, once you've worked that all the way down, and it looks so nice, you work a shell, you slip stitch to join between the 2 shells of the previous strip, work another shell, slip stitch to join between the other two shells, work another shell, and so on all the way down. When you get to the bottom, it can look a little uneven. So I want to sort of walk us through this position together because this confused me the first time I started doing join as you go. So remember, we're building a border and joining as we go, and we're joining to an existing strip that already has its border made. So that border, especially if everything's in the same color, can sometimes throw off the way it looks. Doesn't mean that you've done anything wrong. So let's do this together. I've worked my second last shell because I've come up on, this is my first row of my current strip. This is the bottom big corner that I would work 3 double crochet, chain 2 for a corner, 3 double crochet into before I work across the bottom of my strip. But over here, it looks like I've got all these extra spaces left. So I've worked my second last shell. I look over, there's my join. So the next join happens in between these two shells. So I'm going to just slip stitch to join there. And I'm going to start my shell in my bottom corner. And I'm gonna, working not super tight, but not loose as you go, because when you block your blanket when it's all done, it'll ease up any of those tight looking stitches. Also, the weight of the blanket as you work will help pull on those join stitches. So if it looks a little puckered the first time you do this, that's perfectly normal and not a big deal. Just straightening it out, pulling it out, pressing it down into place will kind of make everything lie flat. But we'll worry about that in a bit. All right, I would normally start to turn here, so I'm going to chain 1 to begin my corner. My last join was there. This will be where my next join is, and that happens to be the corner. So I'm going to slip stitch to join into that corner space of the row opposite. Chain my second chain to turn the corner, and I have to finish the corner in this same space. So I'm working 3 more double crochets into this same space. And then I will have completely turned the corner on my new strip. And then you'll see where we're at here. So this is the first shell now going along the bottom of my new strip. And it's even. So you really do have to get all the way down to the bottom, start that corner sort of shell, work the first shell, begin your corner space, so chain 1, slip stitch to join into the other corner space, chain 1 more, and then finish the corner by working 3 more double crochets, and then you'll see that it evens out. And from here on out, so here's the next space between V-stitches, so we're working across the bottom, 3 plain old double crochets into that space between V-stitches. We're at the bottom of our new strip now. And from here on out, it's just plain old quick sailing double crochet. So that's the second across the bottom, and now we're at the other big space. So this is where we work our second corner. 3 double crochet, chain 2 for the corner, and of course we're not joining as we go anymore. So now we just have to worry about working shells or 3 double crochet clumps all the way up the long side. So I'm going to finish this corner by working 3 double crochets into it. That completes the bottom of the new strip. We are now completely joined to the first strip. So if you're doing a join as you go method, then that's all you need to know when you're joining strips. There we go. Strip 1, strip 2, January, February, all joined up. And now it's just smooth sailing. So find the next big space. This will be the side, the edge of a row. 3 double crochets into it. Remember, you're not chaining between shells. You're just working 3 double crochets into each row edge all the way up. Here's the next one. So easy peasy from here on out. And I'll see you at the top of the strip. Once you've worked 3 double crochet into the edge of each of those rows all the way up, so if you're looking at it this way, V-stitch, V-stitch, and you're working 3 double crochets around the post up the edge of the entire thing, you get all the way up to the top, and we've got one more shell to finish our row with. So there's my second last one. I arrive in the same space that we started in, and I'm going to work 3 double crochet. Remember, we're not chaining in between our shells, we're just working 3 double crochets into the edge of each row, all the way up, down, and across the bottoms and the tops of all of our strips. We want to chain 2. This is our little corner space, and then we're going to find the top of the chain 3 that we began with. Just join with a slip stitch to it. And there we go. You can fasten off. There we go. And you can take a moment to weave in the 2 short tails underneath some of those stitches across the back. Once you're all woven in, you can take a moment to just sort of pull out the corners. Use the heat of your hands to press and pull all of your shells and your stitches, sort of just to flatten it down. But like I said, once we have the entire blanket finished, we can block it, and that will ease up on the stitches that you've used to join. Those joins are pretty important, so you want a little bit of tension when you slip stitch in between shells, because with the weight of the blanket and over time it will loosen up and everything is going to lie quite flat. But you see that lovely bit of definition that that join as you go creates. You have this nice little sideways spike stitch happening between the shells of the previous row, and it's very obvious when you use a different color. If you're using the same color, you won't see it as much, but it will still help define the shape of those shells all the way up and down the side of your strips. You know, this is already a really cool scarf. We hope you enjoyed making the February strip along with us this month, and more to come. There's going to be 12 in total, 12 unique designs. Can't wait. We're already joining as we go. The whole thing's already going to be put together by December. I love this blanket. It is so much fun. Anyway, we will see you guys here soon on the Jayda InStitches show. Until then, stay safe, stay crafty, and have a great week. Bye, everyone.
Hi, everybody. Mr. InStitches here. Thank you for watching today. Here are some of our other videos you might be interested in. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe.